Beyrouthy, chairman of European Payment Institutions Federation, EPIF, to give his keynote speech, Payment Ecosystem in EU.
Right, good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Good? I think it's a great really place, you know, to be here these days. I was really happy to come and participate. This is the first time I'm participating into Mobile Fest here in Turkey, and I find it really exciting. So what I wanted to share with you today, so first maybe allow me to introduce myself very quickly. So my name is Elie Beyrouthy. I'm coming from Belgium in Brussels, and I chair the European Payments Institutions Federation, which is, if you want, the European version of TODEP. Yeah, so we have almost 50% of all payment institutions in the EU are members of our association. So we have, if you're familiar with the Payment Services Directive in the EU, so we have 12 different business models that are covered. So from three-party card schemes to money remitters, to issuers, acquirers, payment facilitators, you know, TPPs, and so on and so forth. So 12 different business models, almost 50% of the market are represented there. So what I want to share with you today are a few things. First, let me give you like who our members are. So you have American Express as a member. You have Western Union, you have PayPal, you have Amazon Payments, you have Apple Pay, you have all the big acquirers like Elevon, First Data, WorldPay, you know, you name it. You know, when really, you know, we gather all the main payment institutions, and also we have a lot of like smaller ones, the likes of Wise, Klarna, and so on and so forth. So really, like very diverse membership. Right, so why Turkey? What messages do I want, you know, to share with you this morning? I've met, you know, some of you this morning into the bilateral meetings, and I think the message I want to convey to you, especially, you know, most of you are here are fintechs active in Turkey and are active in payments. And I think you have a huge opportunity next door, which is in the European Union. And the big advantage I think that you have is something that we have in the EU. It's called the European passport. So what is the European passport for those of you who are not maybe familiar with it? And I think it's important to have it. It's not the passport that you travel with. It's for companies, you know, for companies the possibility to be licensed in one member state of the EU and then to propose the services in the 27 member states. So imagine, you know, you're a fintech, you can get a license in the Netherlands or in Luxembourg or in Lithuania or whatever country, and then only by this license you propose your services across the 27 member states. So that's a huge opportunity. This has been, you know, the basis of the Payment Services Directive that was adopted already in 2009, that then has been reviewed into PSD2, and now, you know, again, I don't want to bother you with the legislative process of the EU, but now also this is being also reviewed again. So we will have a PSD3 and PSR, Payment Services Directive number 3, Payment Services Regulation. Anyway, what is interesting is to know that this is an opportunity for all of you here to be part of this ecosystem by getting one license, as I said, and then, you know, proposing your services across the whole European Union. What does that mean? It means that you would need to deal with one regulator and not 27, and then you can, you know, again, have the businesses everywhere. So that's in terms of the, I would say, the design of what you can do and you cannot do. And then definitely you can join EPIF, because then once you are licensed as a payment institution in the EU, you can join my association. And what does the association do? Why it is important? And then I'll talk about the payments regulatory, you know, framework in the EU, which I think is important to know, because as you have seen, Turkey has somehow copied or taken as like a food for thought the Payment Services Directive when adopting the regime that is currently, in application in Turkey, right? Your legislators and regulators looked at this legislation in the EU and then, adopted a version that resembles, very much to that. So this is important for you to know what's happening in the EU. So you have, three main, I would say, directions that are going. The first one, it's called the strategic autonomy of the EU. So what does that mean? Few years ago, especially after President Donald Trump has been, elected in the US, a lot of tensions between the EU and the US started. And this led, the EU to say, we cannot rely forever on foreign companies in strategic sectors. And payments has been identified as a strategic sector. And so since that moment, the EU started thinking, how do we need to somehow not rely anymore on Visa and Mastercard? Let's face it. So how can we build, payment systems? How can we build across the EU something that will make us autonomous and not rely on Visa, Mastercard? And that was the beginning of the discussion already in 2016, 17. And then the war in Ukraine happened, and then Visa, Mastercard, American Express, and others just pulled out of from Russia from one day to another. And this made, the Europeans extremely, skeptical, saying, oh, they went, so this could happen to us, right? This could happen here, so we need to build something. And that has led, the EU to work on three different pieces that are important. I want to speak a word on this. The first one is called EPI. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called the European Payments Initiative. And this is something that banks in the EU have set together to say, let's build a sort of European card scheme, yeah? Or now they have moved from the European card scheme to build a wallet solution where you could, have services, again, that are active across the whole union. So this is the first one, EPI, European Payments Initiative. Second one is something called instant payments. This is also something that could be coming to your market yet, if it's not the case. Apologies if you have it already and I'm not aware of it. But that's also a movement that we see in different jurisdictions. This means, usually you have the credit transfer. You make a credit transfer from one bank to another. It hits your account 1, 2, 3 days after it is made. I don't know if that's the practice in Turkey or not. But instant payments, it means you do a transfer from one bank to another, and the money is there, it's on the beneficiary account in 10 seconds. That's now the new legislation that the EU has adopted. It is supposed to become the new normal. This has huge advantages of, being used at the POS, because then it means that what you are making a payment, you don't need a card anymore, Visa or Mastercard, but you could definitely use, a QR code, or you can use, your bank or the app of your bank to pay directly the merchant. And this has a huge potential also of having less reliance, I would say, on the international card schemes from the European perspective. And then the third one, which is even more sexy, but it's gonna take, more time, it's the digital euro. And that's what we call the CBDC, central bank digital currency. Again, I'm not sure, and as an excuse my lack of knowledge about also what's going on in Turkey. I don't know if that's a project that your central bank is thinking about. Is it something that, happening in Turkey? I see nods, so it seems to be the case. So the European Central Bank has put together a sort of project for a digital euro. And the idea is to have it live, I think, in 2028 or 2029. And again, here, the banks and the payment institutions are going to be the distributors of this digital euro. And then the ECB, the European Central Bank, will be issuing it. It raises a lot of questions right now, debated, in the European Parliament, between, the different industries. So first, it's on privacy. A lot of people are skeptical, because the idea is that digital currency or the digital euro will replace cash, which means a lot of people say, oh, no, we want our cash. We don't want, anyone to be spying on us or knowing what we're paying, where, etc. while they have no problem when a bank is doing this. But if it is a state entity, then in certain parts of the EU, it starts to raise some concerns, mainly Germany, Austria, like given the history that you know very well from World War II and so on. So you have some political defiance from some part of the political, I would say, arena. And then the issue is that you have no business case as such, because the market is mature enough. And some people, I mean, especially from the banking industry, are saying, why do we need really a digital euro? So is that really something, a necessity we need to have or not? So a lot of questions happening, but guess that in the EU we will be having a digital euro in 2028 or 2029. So this is a bit what's happening in terms of the big pieces of legislation. So you will have, as I said, like to tackle the strategic autonomy part, instant payments already adopted, EPI, which is a private initiative but in the making, and then digital euro that would happen in few years. Then on the other side, I mentioned the word payment services directive, payment services regulation now for a few times. This is a framework that is getting reviewed right now, and part of it is open banking. Again, you might be, I think, familiar with open banking and the principles of open banking. So this is currently reviewed in the EU. The idea is to have more standardization and more harmonization to allow APIs to be used also across the board. But even more importantly is another initiative called Open Finance, or FIDA, for those of you who really want to go into the details. The idea is to make not only payment services, or the data on payment services available, but to have all kinds of, financial products, meaning you would need as a bank or insurance, or if you have a savings account, insurance account, securities account, all types of I would say financial products, you should share data and you should give access to other providers, to this data, and definitely having the consent of the consumer. So this is also something really big that is now in the pipeline. It hasn't been adopted yet, but it is a legislative proposal that the EU is discussing, and it might be coming, your way also in the next month or years to come. So these are the big building blocks when it comes, I would say, to the payments legislation. But you shouldn't forget also that we have all the AML rules, anti-money laundering rules, that are also very important. They have just been reviewed. A new authority has been put in place. And so this is also important, in the EU. You have all the privacy and data regulation. And one thing that also could be coming your way, I don't know if it's the case, it's the data localization. And that's very important for certain countries. We have seen it in places like India, where the regulator is requiring all providers to have the data located in the country, where the payment is taking place. So that was a big problem for American companies, again, in particular, because most or all the data centers were in the US, and then the regulators have required this to happen in the country. So again, this is something that might be coming to Turkey maybe in the few months or years. I don't know if that's something discussed or very high on the political agenda here, but definitely in the EU, this is something being discussed very, very much. So maybe to conclude is to say that I think, from the Turkish market and its perspective, you have huge opportunities, I think, in the EU that you can be pursuing. And I explained a bit the licensing regime, what you can get there, how you can get there. My contact information should be available with Farouk. So again, if you need more information or views about how to deal with this, please reach out to me or just find me on LinkedIn, and then we'll connect and we can continue the discussion. So that's something, I mean, I really ask to take a look at it in order to expand. I think this is really something very interesting to look at, because it's, again, the regulatory regime is not very different between, as in terms of licensing between Turkey and the EU. And then again, as I mentioned to some of you also this morning, you can take advantage of the Turkish diaspora that is really exists in big numbers in some Western European countries in particular. and this could be a first basis, you know, to start from. So with that, I might, you know, I will leave you with these messages. Let's bring, you know, the EU and Turkey close together. There are business opportunities, and definitely, you know, for payment institutions, electronic money institutions, there is a lot to be done. It's a very vibrant market, and let's, you know, use technology in order to bring also these two parts, I would say, of the world together. And thank you very much for listening to me.